It is time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us tonight, a very warm welcome to Miguel Delaney of The Independent and football writer and broadcaster Henry Winter. A very good evening to you both. We'll speak in just a moment. Let's quickly run through the Back Pages as they reach us here at Sky Sports News. The Guardian concentrates on a couple of managerial stories as Arne Slot's move to Liverpool is confirmed. We'll discuss that in just a tick. They also have Brighton targeting Kieran McKenna as they seek a quick replacement for Roberto De Zerbi. The I newspaper also mentions Slot as a coup, they call it, for Liverpool, but their main story is on Mikel Arteta being ready to spend big this summer at Arsenal as he continues that pursuit of Manchester City in the Premier League. City's dominance makes the back page of the Star, where Rodri says Arsenal blew it in the title race by not winning at the Etihad. They also claim that Marcus Rashford's place at the Euros is in doubt. And the Mail also has some big names worried about their England spot for the Euros, including a nervous-looking Jack Grealish. And they're one of several papers to cover Jofra Archer's England comeback as well. Lots to get through then with Miguel and Henry, so let's get cracking, and we'll start with the news that broke on Sky Sports News on Monday tea time, that Arne Slot has been confirmed as the new Liverpool head coach just 24 hours after Jurgen Klopp's departure. This is The Guardian. Slot has signed a 3-year deal to replace Klopp as head coach and starts officially on the 1st of June, subject to a work permit. The paper saying that Feyenoord, his old club, will receive £7.7 million in compensation, plus a couple more million euros in add-ons. Miguel, let me start with you. This doesn't come as a surprise. Jurgen Klopp was even singing Slot's name, wasn't he, at Anfield on Sunday? I mean, how does the task facing him compare, do you think, to trying to replace Sir Alex at Manchester United or Arsene Wenger at Arsenal? Because we know how that turned out for the successors there.
It's a similar dynamic, obviously, because you're replacing someone who would be considered irreplaceable. But that's actually where I think Liverpool have at least been clever in the type of move they've done, even if there is uncertainty about Slot. I mean, anyone you speak to in football would say he's a very promising coach. Spurs really wanted him last year. But I think a key here is that rather than just allow Slot the same position as Klopp, which would, give him more responsibility, put him under greater pressure, also give him more obligations. I think Liverpool have been smart in that they've basically they've reverted to a head coach in a wider structure. So Slot isn't as responsible for recruitment decisions. He basically doesn't have the autonomy of Klopp in that way. And that's probably smart because it means it isn't quite the same role. It's probably a model for any club to follow when they're in these sort of situations. And if a manager starts to fulfill the expectations or proves that he has that kind of charismatic figurehead approach, that's when you give them more power. That's exactly what Arsenal did with Arteta, given he was an initial head coach. But there is obviously a huge amount of uncertainty about this. Slot has potential. He can be exciting in his own right. But given that uncertainty, Liverpool have probably approached it in the smartest way they can.
And it's interesting. I mean, the Eye are saying it's a coup for Liverpool to bring in Slot from the Eredivisie. Henry, I mean, his CV is impressive. He's won cups and titles. The stats, the style of play, all very impressive as well. But we know the Eredivisie is not the Premier League. Whereas Manchester United have taken a number of years and are still recovering, and Arsenal only now competing for titles again. Do you expect to see Liverpool contending for the title under Slot as soon as next season?
Well, he inherits a decent squad. He inherits a pretty much rebuilt stadium. So it's different from when Klopp stepped in there. Klopp's left him quite a legacy and also very big boots to fill. But I think the most significant thing we've seen in the last 48 hours is the reaction of the Feyenoord fans, and Liverpool fans have picked up on this quickly, in that they gave quite an emotional, quite a supportive send-off to Arne Slot with the walk on, obviously, sort of the echo of the Liverpool chant. And I just think that's so important because, Liverpool, as with all clubs, the manager has to be more than just sort of a leader of 22, 25 players. He's also got to be the conductor of the choir on the terraces. He's got to have that emotional engagement, especially with the Kop. You saw that with Klopp. So I think that message coming out from the Far North fans is really important, that Liverpool are gaining someone who connects with fans.
And of course, the fear of a lot of Liverpool fans would have been, we've touched on the players, that with Klopp walking out the door, so too might some of his main players, Miguel. But if we look at the Sun, they are saying slot machine, jackpot for Arne as Salah pledges to fight like hell. They say that Salah is staying at the club. How big a lift, how big a boost would that be for Slot?
Well, it's actually an interesting one, given that maybe a month ago, and even at the start of the season, from the initial Saudi offer, there has been this debate over whether it's better to cash in on Salah. But I mean, we know, and given his obvious physical fitness, we know an on-form Salah can be hugely valuable. I actually thought the tone of Salah's messaging was quite interesting as well, because obviously so much of the talk has been about journeys and the emotion of Liverpool, but he was straight in on trophies. But even this decision, I suppose, points to something big here as well, in terms of kind of who controls the recruitment, where they go, or how much they actually amend this squad. Because it does feel like from that perspective, it could be quite a seamless transition. And there's already been talk as well that Darwin Núñez is going to be back, given that he had been seen as maybe someone who Klopp really banked on, but this current recruitment structure weren't necessarily as keen on.
The Premier League season's only been over for 24 hours, but all the stories seem to be dominated by managerial issues, Henry. And we go back into The Guardian to focus on the future of Kieran McKenna. Brighton push to appoint McKenna as their new manager. It's that article down the right-hand side of your screen there. This is Jacob Steinberg saying Brighton are pushing to complete a deal, but they face competition from Chelsea and Manchester United. He says McKenna, who has emerged as one of the brightest young managers, is in line to move to the Amex if all the pieces fall into place. Henry, I mean, it's been an incredible story. League One to Premier League in 2 seasons. Having achieved that, would he really want to leave with the next chapter still to be written at Ipswich?
I hope he stays. I mean, you can see the attraction of Brighton. They're a very well-run club. Paul Barber, Tony Bloom. Absolutely, he could step in there and enhance his reputation. But I think he would enhance his reputation even more if he stayed with Ipswich, showed some loyalty. Okay, he's done fantastically for them, as you say, those 2 promotions. He's a very interesting character. He's not the type who will make the decision suddenly. He will think long and hard about this. He's a very intelligent, meticulous individual. And well, I hope he stays because of what he's got building at Ipswich. You've only got to go there and just sort of feel the mood in the place. Look at the team. Okay, he's got to replace some of the players who may be going back on loan, but he can build them again. And, it's not exactly as he's got owners with shallow pockets. I mean, I think they're trillionaires, and they've already raised, was it 100 million? Some of that's going into the training ground, and Kieran McKenna is very much part of that in terms of the rebuilding of the training ground. There's more than a lick of paint going on Portman Road, and there's a buzz about the place. I would be sad if he left now, but look, he's such an in-demand manager that, talent often walks to a bigger club. But I think his reputation would be so enhanced if he really gave it a go with Ipswich in the Premier League. And even if Ipswich went down, I don't think his reputation would be damaged that much, because people would look at just look at the gravity that affects certainly the 3 clubs this season who came up and have gone back down again. But also the work that he did in actually getting Ipswich there in the first place. So look, I hope he stays because he's got something special going at Ipswich.
And Jacob's article also, as I mentioned, Miguel, says that there is competition from Chelsea and Manchester United for Kieran McKenna. Now, I mean, we should stress both those clubs right now have managers in place. Right now, at this stage of his managerial career, would Brighton be a better fit if he were to leave Ipswich?
It would feel like that. And it's interesting, given we're having this whole discussion about whether managers should stick with clubs who would be perceived as lower down, have come from lower down, when they should go. it's interesting. I mean, it's usually not Brighton who kind of take that leap themselves. It's usually Brighton who lose coaches to clubs like Manchester United and Chelsea. So this is almost kind of on a scale down. But in terms of kind of, I mean, sometimes when managers are in this situation, there's always that talk about, well, I might not get this opportunity again. But I mean, if he wants, I suppose, an illustration of why that isn't always the best mindset to take, well, I suppose look at one of his one of Brighton's previous managers in Graham Potter. Whereas now, I mean, okay, the argument would have been, or the argument should be now, that he maybe should have stuck it out with Brighton, given what they were building there, rather than go to the uncertainty of Chelsea. Now, of course, Brighton are one of the more stable clubs in England, and he no doubt they would amplify McKenna's obvious abilities. But I think Henry's absolutely right here that, I mean, of course, McKenna can only do what's right for his own career, but it would be a shame if, having taken Ipswich to this level, he didn't kind of fully see out the journey. And who knows? I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to end in relegation, given they've already defied gravity to get this far. But yeah, I completely agree with Henry that if he went down, given the context of the Premier League right now, it wouldn't be seen as any sort of black mark on his, or not any negative on his CV. And similar, actually, look at the Liverpool manager. There have been thinking this time last year that if Arne Slot didn't take his chance to go to England, he might miss out. Well, here he is in a kind of a bigger job than he would have got last year.
Well, from a young manager who'll be looking to make his mark in the Premier League to an ever so slightly older one who's certainly made his mark in the last couple of years, but just falling short again, Henry, when it comes to the title, is, of course, Mikel Arteta. This is the eye. Arteta will spend again in a bid to end City's dominance, says Sam Cunningham, their chief football correspondent. Arsenal will back Mikel Arteta, they claim, as he looks to assemble a squad capable of toppling Manchester City, of course, missing out on the title, Arsenal, by 2 points. 89 points wasn't enough, Henry. When you look at this Arsenal squad, how many additions and in what areas do you think they need to strengthen to make it capable of toppling City next season?
Well, first they're up against a juggernaut in Manchester City, and Arsenal, with this squad, took them to the last day of the season. Heung-min Son takes his chance last Tuesday. Arsenal take their chances in the first half against Aston Villa, and it's a completely different story. But clearly they need number 9. They need a finisher. Kai Havertz has come in and he's contributed towards the back end of the season with goals, playing as a false 9. But they need an Ivan Toney. They need a Dominic Solanke. I'm not saying that they should rush out and get either of those two, but they need a number 9. They need a finisher. And if they had that, someone who could take those chances in the first half against Aston Villa and 1 or 2 other games, then it would be a different story. But absolutely, there's complete harmony. You could see it on the pitch. Mig and I were there yesterday, and you could see the harmony on the pitch between the board and Arteta. Obviously, Edu's heavily involved there as well in terms of recruitment. They bought well with Declan Rice, and they spent a lot of money, certainly by Arsenal standards. So in terms of one big lump sum, but they might have to do that again for a number 9. But the belief in Arteta is absolutely 100% there, because he has turned that squad around. He's got rid of some of the people who weren't pulling in the same direction that he wanted to go. Everyone is absolutely on the same page. You've got individuals all over the pitch taking responsibility. You've got Arteta's hunger and direction and positivity. And absolutely the board will back him, and they're quite right to, because Arsenal are building and building. I mean, Manchester City they have a fantastic manager, they have a fantastic squad, but, there's only 2 points in it.
Yeah, and the word that Henry used there, the Manchester City juggernaut with Pep Guardiola at the controls, at least for another year. We know that Miguel, he's said that, hasn't he? If we look to the mirror here, Mind the Gap is the headline, and it's Rodri just putting a few doses of salt into the Arsenal wounds, claiming they are not mentally strong enough to win the Premier League. He's pointed to that goalless draw at the Etihad at the end of March and says they didn't possess the mentality of true champions. Miguel, is that where they lost it? And is that why they lost it? They didn't have the right mentality?
Well, first, I quite like the fact that Rodri has actually been so open, which is unusual in these cases. I think it's harsh. Because ultimately, Arsenal have won 16 out of the last 18 games. That's near perfection. And also, I think that 0-0 was very much influenced by what happened last season, when basically Arsenal, maybe a more naive Arsenal, opened out against City a bit more and got absolutely thrashed in the same fixture. So from that perspective, it's a bit of a learning process. And I mean, maybe that speaks to Rodri's wider point, that it is about evolving and developing that extra mentality, not just to go to the ground of the champions and sit deep and accept a draw, although I think there was justification in the context, but to actually go further. But then I suppose this comes back to what Henry's talking about there with Arteta's plans, where, I mean, Arsenal at the moment, they're almost like it's where Liverpool were in 2018, where the calculation now, it's almost the maths of basically getting from 89 points to, they would probably think, to guarantee the title, or at least have as good a chance as you can have to get into the mid-90s. That's what Klopp realised at Liverpool. That's the challenge of this city. Okay, it's only 91 this season, but that's still very high. And I think that's much more relevant than any individual game at this point.
Yeah, good point. Miguel, Henry, thanks for now. Have a quick break and come back to our guests very shortly for more of the back pages, including lots of stories sharing a busy back page of The Sun, including their take on a special plan for Kieran Trippier at the Euros. We'll look at Gareth Southgate's selection issues next. You're watching Back Pages tonight. A warm welcome back to our guest, Miguel Delaney of The Independent, and Henry Winter as well, the football writer and broadcaster. Right, chaps, let's get stuck into some more of the stories specifically relating to the England Euros squad announcement. Gareth Southgate expected to name up to 33 players on Tuesday. He'll then narrow that down next month before the finals. This is the Mail. Jack Grealish pictured there. He's quite a downbeat in his interviews on the pitch after City won the title. He admitted he's had a difficult season at times, Henry. And the picture makes him look a little anxious and worried there. Should he be worried about his place in this England squad for the flight to Germany?
Well, I think he'll be in the training squad, and then he's got to go and prove himself. But I think if you look at the way that Southgate picks, Southgate's pretty loyal. If players have done it for him in tournaments and in qualifying campaigns, he is loyal. Look, I'm sure there'll be one or two admissions, whether that's it'd be a surprise if Sterling's in the squad anyway, despite his sort of recent sort of improving form for Chelsea. So I think the big issues are, England have got so much attacking talent, and that's one of the issues that Grealish has got. But for Southgate, where does he play Foden? If his best position is clearly as a 10, you've then got Bellingham as the 8, and you've got Rice. Southgate likes to play almost with a double pivot, have a sort of Henderson type in there, or Kobe Mainoo. But then where you're going to play Foden, you're going to play him off the left. You obviously got Saka on the right and Kane up top. So it's juggling all those positions, but that puts a squeeze on the positions out wide. Cole Palmer's clearly going to be in there. Jarrod Bowen's had a fantastic season and deserves to be in there. Obviously, those are more right-sided. But the issues for me are at the back. At left back, as the Sun have been highlighting, Kieran Trippier, who's he has played about 11, I think, of his international caps. He's even captained England from left back, left wing back. So just appropriately on the left side of the page, that Trippier would go from right to left back. England have got some outstanding right backs, but it's a left back with Luke Shaw. Luke Shaw's a real disappointment because he was outstanding. We saw it in the last Euros in the final when he scored early. And I think if you have Shaw playing, you get a better performance out of Rashford as well. So, yeah, they're problems, but Southgate's problems are he's got almost too many attackers to choose from and too few defenders to choose from.
And on the left-back issue, Miguel, Luke Shaw's not played for 3 months. Ben Chilwell's made 2 starts since the beginning of March. They were both for England. How big a threat is this defensive issue to England's hopes of success this summer?
Well, it's a double whammy, isn't it? Because it's basically all of the most... actually, Southgate is going through a bit of an injury crisis at the moment, and they're all in the areas where he has the thinnest options. So, it's not fatal, the chances, obviously, but it's something he has to kind of compromise around. Now, sometimes teams have actually gone into tournaments, and that innovation necessary or that kind of compromise necessary can actually add a different element. But it is certainly an extra challenge he wouldn't want, especially given, I suppose over 2023, there was the thinking that he was close to what he would have considered his best team. and now, or he's and I think he spoke about it in press conference where he in his own mind knows his best 11, whereas now he goes into the campaign having to rethink all of that. So I think that's one of the biggest issues, and that's why even within the FA it's being stressed. I mean, Henry used the term there. Although we're talking about a squad announcement tomorrow, it is just a training squad, and the next 2 weeks are essentially a training squad because he won't have all the players he wants. So it's about having those who are available and will go having kind of suitable preparation. So it's maybe a trickier period than people would have anticipated a few months ago. I suppose that's international tournaments too.
And let's just finish on England with Marcus Rashford, another name that could well be sweating on his place in the final squad. In the Daily Express, their headline on the back page is "Rash, Sweat and Headaches." You know, you mentioned Grealish and you touched on Rashford there. Henry, let's just pick up on the Manchester United man. We know he's had a really tough season. How much has he got to prove in this training squad?
He'll have a lot to prove, but Southgate does know him. He does trust him. He's used him in tournaments before. England have, to an extent, issues on the left. They've obviously got a wealth of talent on the right, but unless he is going to play sort of Foden drifting in from the left, which is certainly not Foden's best position. Personally, I think the main pressure on Marcus Rashford comes from Anthony Gordon. I think Anthony Gordon's had a fantastic season. I think he won Newcastle's Player of the Year. He played for England, played well. He's a confident lad. He's also what the FA like to call a sort of a good tourist, a good citizen. He'll sort of fit in well. And it was interesting, the England staff, the FA staff were watching him around the camp just to see how he settled in, how he was with the staff, how he was with the kitman, how he was with the other player. And Gordon passed on all those. So that, I think, Gordon will be in the training squad. I'm sure he'll be in the 26, and the debate is whether he starts. So, look, there's a pressure on Rashford, but Rashford over the last sort of 18 months has always seemed happiest when he's with England. Well, I don't know whether that's a managerial thing or whether it's just sort of less pressure than being at Manchester United, where he's certainly not sort of delivered. He had a great season last season, but certainly not this season. So he seems happiest, and he's very much a mood player. He likes to be loved. He needs to be with players around him, and I think England often brings the best out of him. But he's got to start delivering. I completely agree.
Always good to hear from you both. Time has beaten us, but thank you once again to you, Henry Winter, to Miguel Delaney. We'll see you very soon. Thanks very much indeed for your time. If you missed any of the show, there is another chance to see Back Pages tonight at 1:30. The show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And on Tuesday night at 10:30, David Ornstein and Mark Ogden will be our guests. Next, Liverpool have wasted no time confirming Arne Slot as Jurgen Klopp's successor. More on that story after the...